There's lots of reasons that emulation can't shoulder the burden of game preservation. Let's see if I could get to them all. Number 1, emulation is still an illegal gray area. That means that for now, it can never be used in any official capacity. You see this at GDQ marathons. They always have to use the original hardware, even if it's standard practice to end up speedrunning on emulator. This also means they have to go way out of their way to find really rare hardware, kind of needlessly if you ask me. But this also means that it can never be featured in libraries, even though emulators teach us a lot about how old video games were programmed. It means they can't be used in classrooms. It means that they can't be used at conventions, even though we break that rule a lot. Basically, there's always a chance that a company will complain and any game preservation efforts using emulators will be shut down. Issue number 2, game emulators are not perfect. Emulation gets really close to the original experience, but does not perfectly replicate it. Many emulators from the N64 era don't perfectly emulate controls or sound. In fact, we still don't have a perfect sound solution for PlayStation emulation. And graphics as translated through modern-day monitors and emulators are completely different from graphics that were translated through old hardware and CRTs. Emulators are a fantastic tool, but they're no substitute for the real thing, or a facsimile of the real thing converted to run on modern hardware. But creating that modern preserved replica of a game, something specifically for artistic preservation, is also something that's in a legal gray area right now. Issue 3, there are limits to emulation. A lot of video games have an online component that emulation just can't simulate. The online experience of these games is important to understanding their place in history. Being able to replicate that online experience means having the ability to create servers and updates for old software on old hardware. This is something that we currently can't do with our current copyright law, but it's something that libraries, especially computer science libraries, are well equipped to do if they were legally allowed. Like, you know all those sad stories when servers go down, or like when the Wii Shop goes down or something like that, and we're like, oh, we'll miss it? If our copyright law was different, libraries could preserve those things. You could still see the software that was available to download. You could even download it. You could get a group together to play an online game that hasn't been supported for years, because there would be libraries specifically geared toward the preservation of those online experiences. So yeah, emulation does a lot, and it's probably our best option right now. But that's not saying a lot. It's actually a pretty bad option for preservation as far as things go. It's just that we have nothing else. Currently, we are leaving all game preservation efforts in the hands of independent coders who are operating in a legal space that could be shut down in any minute. That's not sustainable, and honestly, that's just not good for video games in any capacity other than as a business. It's not good for video games as art. It's not good for video games in academia. It's just not good for video games, period.